Hi, you four. Good morning and welcome to Thursday's English session. As you know, yesterday we set about writing our short story based on a film that we were watching, The Egyptian Pyramid. Okay, we were using those special descriptive techniques to make sure our writing was really powerful and effective for our reader. And today our learning objective is to edit and publish my writing to improve its quality. So what you'll probably have in front of you from yesterday is a first draft. Okay, as we would do in school, first draft. We know that our first attempt at anything isn't going to be perfect. There'll always be things that we can improve. So we're going to use a fresh brain this morning to go over our writing, to look for any mistakes, any areas that we think could be improved. And then once we've found those and edited those, we then go to think about ways of publishing our writing so that we can have our first draft that's got all of our improvements over it, but have a final draft that we publish and present to our best ability. Okay, so 3 steps for today's session then. Firstly, we're going to be checking for sense and punctuation. Okay, so we make sure that we haven't forgotten any commas or full stops and that we've used the right punctuation in the right places so that our sentences make sense. Okay, step number 2, we're then going to check spellings and up level our vocabulary. And thirdly, we are going to add in any additional description to build further imagery. So we're going to add in some ideas that we think might be missing. Okay, let's have a look then at step number 1. I'll talk you through the slide and then I'll show you some live modelling with my writing from yesterday. Okay, so you might wonder why I've got a picture of gold over here. Okay, and that's because there's something really important that you need to do when you are editing your writing. First of all, the big picture of the year shows us that we need to listen to how our writing sounds when we read it out loud. But the way we are going to read it is as if it is gold. It's really precious, our work. It's totally unique and it's ours. So we need to treat it as if it's really special because it is. There's nobody else in the world has that writing in front of them, only you. It's come from the inside your brain onto the page. It's a wonderful thing. So we're going to need to make sure that we read it and listen to it, okay, and treat it like it's gold. Okay, writing gold. So read it with expression. Stop at your full stops. Pause at your commas. Take your time reading it out and take pride in the writing that you've done. And so also, once we've checked that it makes sense, okay, we're also going to make sure that we have our punctuation in the right places. And these are the pieces of punctuation that we are going to focus on today. So you can see here, we need to make sure we have capital letters for all of our proper nouns, okay, specific names of people and places. Make sure we've got full stops to end our sentences to mark where one idea finishes and the next begins. I don't think we'll have any of these unless your character, the archaeologist, is going to ask himself a question in his mind. And if you have done that, or you want to add that in, you'll use a question mark, an exclamation mark, okay, for an exclamation sentence, if a strong emotion is expressed, and apostrophes, okay. So if it's the archaeologist's hands, for example, they belong to the archaeologist, so we need to use an apostrophe there. So let's leave this slide. You can always come back to it and pause the video when you are actually editing your writing to remind you of these. But I'm going to now share with you my screen. I'm going to show my writing from yesterday and I'm going to model to you the editing process for checking for sense and punctuation. We'll then go on to step 2, okay, and I'll again model how to check for those features, and we'll then move on to step 3 finally, look at how to edit those features. So we're really breaking down the editing process. We're not trying to change everything in one go because that can be overwhelming. All right, we're just going to start off looking through the whole of our writing, looking for sense and punctuation. Okay, fantastic. We can now move back to my board. And I'm hoping that you can see all of my writing here. Okay, brilliant. So we're thinking of checking for sense and also for punctuation. That's the only things I'm looking for at the moment. Okay, so let's take a look, shall we? I'm going to read through my writing like I suggested with that ear symbol and read it like it is writing gold. I'm going to take real pride in my work. Okay, if you can see this clearly, read with me. In the blazing, endless desert, the archaeologists knelt down in the golden sand and brushed the grains hopefully. Gradually, a glinting blue object is revealed. Inspecting it closely, he moved the sapphire cartouche in his hands. Suddenly, it made a beeping sound, and behind him, an enormous pyramid began to rise. Okay, so I'm thinking about checking that it makes sense. And I'm going to work through sentence by sentence to check. And that's what I'd like you to do this morning when I ask you to pause the video. Check each and every sentence. Okay, so I'm going to look at this first sentence at the top here. I'm already seeing that I've got a capital letter, so that's great punctuation here. In the blazing, comma, endless desert, and I've marked my fronted adverb with a comma, so again, I know that's fine. In the blazing, endless desert, the archaeologists knelt down in the golden sand and brushed the grains hopefully. Full stop. I've ended my sentence in the correct place, and that makes sense. What I've said makes sense. Okay, so I'm really happy with that. Next up, let's look onto the next sentence. Gradually. And I'm checking that I've got my capital letter here, which I do. Gradually. Okay, that's my fronted adverb. Okay, with a comma at the end. A glinting blue object is revealed. I think there's something missing there. I can see I've got a capital letter for the beginning of my next sentence, but I can't see that I've got anything in here to suggest that this sentence has finished. So I'm going to take a different colour pen, and that's really, really helpful if you have one. And I'm just going to circle there. So I'm looking and I'm knowing that I think there's something missing there. So gradually a glinting blue object is revealed. I think there's a full stop missing there. So I'm going to put that in nice and clearly. Now there's something else that I think is a problem here. And sometimes this is a kind of mistake that we make actually when we're in the classroom, when we're writing. We sometimes change tense a little bit. Okay, now I'm writing a narrative of something that's already happened. So I'm writing in the past tense. So all my verbs need to be in past tense. All right, so like for example here, knelt, that's in the past tense. But have a look here, I'm going to circle this. I think that there is some editing to be done here. I've got gradually a glinting blue object is revealed. Actually is present tense. So I need to, what's the past tense of is was. So very carefully, this is what I'd like you to do. If you spot a mistake like this, you need to rewrite a word. You're just going to use the space above as neatly as you can, okay, to write in with your lovely handwriting the correct word. So was revealed, on full stop there. Okay, great. I'm already making improvements. That's fantastic. Next up, inspecting it closely, he moved the sapphire cartouche in his hands. Okay, so just going back here, I have a feeling I've used another fronted adverbial, haven't I? Inspecting it closely. So that's the manner that he's doing it in. Inspecting it closely. I think that I need to mark that with a comma because it's a fronted adverbial. So I'm going to circle there. I think that bit's missing. I'm going to place my comma in there. Let's read it again, because when I read it out loud, actually, I did pause there slightly. I don't know if you noticed that. And so that's an indication possibly that there's a comma to go in. Inspecting it closely, comma, he moved the sapphire cartouche in his hands, full stop. Yeah, I definitely think that sounds better now. Suddenly, comma, great, that's in the right place. It made a beeping sound, and behind him, comma. An enormous pyramid began to rise. Okay, that makes sense. I've got my full stop to finish. I've marked my adverbials and my adverb with a comma, and I am happy that I have finished now checking for step 1, punctuation and sense. Let's go back to the slides and have a look at step 2. Right, okay, so check 1 complete, ding. Let's go on to step number 2. So this is where we're going to check spellings and up-level vocabulary. Okay, what you can see on the slide here is that I have put together a list of nouns that I think would be useful. Just going to resize this one as it just cuts off that bit there. Fantastic. Okay, so in purple we have a list of nouns of words that would be useful for this piece of writing that you may misspell. So we've got archaeologist, camel, pyramid, statue, tomb, stairway, excavation site, another word for the dig pit, entrance, and limestone. The pyramid would have been made out of limestone blocks. Some adjectives: scorching, isolated means on your own, arid, which means very dry. That might come in helpful when we're up leveling our vocabulary. Thunderous might describe the sound of the tomb door closing, and colossal means absolutely enormous. So again, we've got some vocabulary here that we could use to up level and also to help us with spellings. And we've got, again, our wow words from yesterday: oppressive, perspire, blistering and clammy, and our adjectives down here. So plenty of words for you to take a look at. If you want to pause at any point, you can come back to this slide, can't you, and have a check through. Let's go back to my writing now, because I know for sure that there is definitely one spelling mistake that I spotted when I uploaded the video yesterday. I don't know if you spotted it too. Okay, and there's definitely some vocabulary that I can improve here. Okay, so we're back in demonstration mode. So I'm going to go through this. I know it all makes sense, my punctuation. So I'm just going to be just skimming and scanning for spellings that are incorrect. Now, in terms of your spellings, okay, it may be that actually you think that all of your spellings are correct, and that's absolutely fine. You might want to get somebody at home with you to have a look through and a read through and a check as well. And you also might like to pause the slide where all the vocabulary is and just double check that your spellings are correct. Now, of course, if you find spelling tricky and you think that there are quite a few spelling mistakes in this piece of writing, then I would encourage you to make the improvements that you can. Okay, don't get too bogged down in it. Okay, but make some improvements that you can. Okay, and do the best that you can to make this writing as good as it can be. Okay, so I'm just going to go through, and I can already skim and scan very quickly everything that's good until I get to this word here. And it's probably my biggest word in my piece of writing, and it's archaeologist. Okay, now I don't know if you can tell, there is a letter missing in that word. So have a little look. Got A-R-C-A-E-O-L-O-G-I-S-T, archaeologist. Have you figured it out? Well done if you did spot it. Okay, I'm missing the letter H. Now, what I'd like you to do when you're checking for spellings is to identify the part in the word that is incorrect. Okay, so you're having to think carefully and work out which parts are right and which parts are not quite so right, which bit doesn't look right. And it might be that you look at a word and you don't know which part might be wrong, but you just look at the word and think, that doesn't look right. If that's the case, underline the whole word and then you can look it up afterwards. In this case, I know that actually most of the word is correct, but I know I've missed my H out. So I'm going to underline that part there because I know that it's missing from there. Okay, I'm then going to, just like I did before with was, I'm going to write above that word and I'm going to write it out correctly. Okay, really concentrating to make sure I don't misspell it again. Okay, so I'm going to break it down. So I've got arc, okay, but like an arc of a rainbow. An arc, arch, arc, A-E-O, arc, A-E-O, aeologist, archaeologist. Now look, started with my E. Let me just double check that here. A-R-C-H-A-E. Now, I'm just going to grab my rubber, okay, because I want to make sure this writing is tip-top. And if you find that you've made a mistake, then don't leave it, correct it straight away. If you have a rubber, that's ideal. If not, you'll just cross through and carry on. A, E, O, L, O, G, I, S, T. Archaeologist. Brilliant. That looks much better now. Fantastic. Now I'm skimming through and I'm scanning, and I can see that actually my spellings. I'm going to double check cartouche. Yep, that's correct. My spellings are fine now. Just that one needed checking. So now I'm on to the up leveling of vocabulary. Okay. And, you know, as I was reading through this earlier, I realised that I'd used the word endless to describe the desert. But then later in my piece of writing, if you remember from yesterday, I also used endless to describe the stairway all the way into to the top of the statue where the entrance to the tomb was. Now, in writing, it's okay to use more than one word twice, but because this is such a short piece of writing, I don't really want to repeat vocabulary. So what I'm going to do here, and what I'd like you to do when you pause the video shortly, is to look for any words that you've repeated, or any words that you think that's okay, but it could be better. So things like hot and dry, they're okay, and they would certainly describe the desert accurately, but they're not really ambitious. They're not really year 4 vocabulary, are they? So let me just underline endless with my different colour. I know that's what I want to improve. Okay, and just checking back on the slides that I put up for you just now, I think I'm going to emphasise this idea of dryness. Okay, and a really fantastic adjective to describe dryness that means very, very dry is the word arid, A-R-I-D, arid. So I'm going to substitute the word endless for arid. I'm going to write it above exactly like I did before. Nice and neatly. So in the blazing arid desert. Yeah, that fits really nicely. I'm really pleased with that change. And again, when I was reading through my writing, I got to this sentence. Gradually, a glinting blue object was revealed. And I looked at the word blue and I thought, it's fine. It describes the colour, but blue is a very general term. There are so many shades of blue that we have that I think I need to be more descriptive than just using the word blue. So again, I'm going to underline it, and that's what you'll need to do with any words that you want to improve. And I'm going to think about different shades of blue. Well, it wasn't navy, it wasn't a very dark blue, was it? And it wasn't sky blue either. That would be too pale. So I'm trying to think of something, a colour, a blue colour that would fit really well with that cartouche. And actually, something that popped into my mind was the fact that, it was shiny, wasn't it? It was a shiny blue colour. And actually, when I think of shiny and blue, I think about a precious stone, a precious jewel called a sapphire. And a sapphire is kind of a mid-blue, shiny, precious stone. Often you can find it in rings. So I'm going to change blue to sapphire, okay, because I know actually that's a really specific shade of blue that matches really nicely with the cartouche. So again, above it, 2 P's, S-A-P-P-H-I-R-E, sapphire. Now, if you're trying to uplevel your vocabulary, it'd be a really good idea to make sure that the vocabulary that you replace it with is spelt correctly. So you're doing your spellings and upleveling all in one go. Okay, so that's definitely improved that sentence there. Okay, Now, that means that I need to make one more change before I move on to the next step. And I know this might seem to you like, oh, editing takes a long time and I don't know if I've got the patience or the stamina. Stick with me, because honestly, when you get to the end of this, not only will you have you improved your writing skills, but you will also have greater pride in your work and then be really ready to show it off and to publish it. So can you see how I've improved this word to sapphire? But if I read the next sentence, I've got sapphire again. Like, I don't want to be repeating myself. So I need to change the word sapphire. Inspecting it closely, comma, he moved the sapphire cartouche in his hands. So I don't want to be using sapphire again. So I'm going to underline it to show that I need to improve it. Now, I've already described the colour of it. Okay, so now I need to start thinking about what else could I describe about this cartouche. Maybe I could describe the fact that parts of it were golden. Maybe I could describe the weight of it. Maybe it was a heavy or a weighty object. I might like to describe exactly how shiny it was. The glinting cartouche I could have perhaps. And I could also maybe have, I can't have glinting, can I? Look, I've already got glinting in there. I could have shiny. Doesn't really seem to be really very ambitious. So maybe I could actually talk about its worth. Okay, and part of being a really good writer and editing is just thinking of lots of different ideas and then deciding which is the best one. So I could put precious, or I could put ancient perhaps, or I could put unique. I think I'm going to go with precious. I think just to really emphasize that it's got really great value. So inspecting it closely, he moved the cartouche, the precious cartouche, in his hands. Now here we go. I'm going to put precious above. Fantastic with my neat handwriting and drawing up my letters. Fantastic. I'm really happy with that. So I'm not repeating myself and I've improved my vocabulary as well as my spellings. Let's go back to the slide. We've nearly made it and we're on to step number 3. Okay, right. Step number 3 then. So this is the part where actually we can start to think about if there's anything missing from our writing, make sure we've covered all of the key kind of parts of our story with enough detail so that the reader can really imagine it in their heads. And we've included that fantastic description. Okay, so what I've done here on this slide in purple is I have just written out a number of questions that might just get your brain thinking of extra little details that you could add into your sentences. So let's think about these questions and then let's see if actually I can add any final changes to my writing before it's ready for publishing. Okay, so what was the camel doing whilst the archaeologist was brushing? So you might want to add in a little sentence about what the camel was doing whilst all of this was going on. What was the archaeologist's reaction when he heard the cartouche beep? Could you describe his facial expressions, or did he gasp out loud, a sound possibly? Okay, so think about that. Next, how long did it take him to reach the top of the staircase? So could you add in a fronted adverbial after what seemed like hours, or after a few minutes? Okay, whatever it is, that would be useful to add in that description. What was he thinking as he stood outside the entrance? And it could be that when we talked about using question marks, you might want to throw in some of the thoughts that he had at various points, like, what on earth is this place? Question mark, thought the archaeologist to himself. So you could add in ideas like that. What sound did it make when he landed in the pit? Was it a thud or a thump? Or a bang, or think about the sounds there that it could have been. That could have been describing. You might even want to use a simile. He landed like a sack of potatoes, or he landed heavily. Use an adverb instead. So that's another way of just adding in even just a word or two to just again develop your description. What was he thinking about? What just happened right at the end? Do you remember? Maybe you could put in some thoughts that he was having at the end there. Like, thank goodness I've got out of there. And then what expression might have been on his face when he was staring up at the pyramid at the end, with eyes glazed over and mouth wide open. The archaeologist stared blankly at the pyramid before him. So something like that is really, really helpful, just to add in that final little sentence just to round things off. Okay, let's go back for the final time to my board here with my edited writing. I'm going to see if there's any extra little details I can add in to build the imagery further. Okay, right then, here we go. You see, so I'm going to reread it with the changes, and then see and stop whenever I think there's a place to be improved here. So anything to add in. In the blazing, arid desert, the archaeologist knelt down in the golden sand and brushed the grains hopefully. Okay. Gradually, a glinting sapphire object was revealed. Inspecting it closely, he moved the precious cartouche in his hands. I sort of want to add something in here. When I think about how he's holding the cartouche, let's imagine that this is the cartouche, my glasses case. Okay, there's lots of ways that we could move this. We could be throwing it between our hands. We could be kind of shaking it, moving it that way. We could be opening it, or looking right at it, or holding it away from us. But actually, when the archaeologist discovers this, because it's so precious and so shiny and so amazing, actually he handles it very carefully. So I'm thinking that I can add in an adverb here to just, again, emphasize how precious the cartouche actually is. So I'm really pleased with that word choice there, because that really matches up well. So I'm going to think now. I could have carefully, inspecting it closely, he moved the precious cartouche, and I could have, I'm going to add it in after the word cartouche. Now I can see I don't have much space above here because I've got my descender, my Y there, so I'm not going to try and squeeze it in. So I'm going to go below for this one. And whenever you're adding something in, okay, that you think is missing, that could be added in, you always just do a little arrow pointing to where you're going to write what's missing. So is that the precious cartouche? I could have carefully, I could have delicately, could have fondly. That works quite so well. I think I'm going to go with carefully or delicately. I'm going to go with carefully. I think delicately would be for something that's perhaps a little bit more fragile and breakable. I don't think the cartouche is that breakable, so I think that carefully fits really well there. So let me add in that adverb. Carefully. Fantastic. Now I'm just skimming to make sure I haven't got carefully in here again, because I don't want to repeat myself. Nope, I've got carefully, gradually, and hopefully. So I've got a few adverbs there, but none of them repeat. Okay, fantastic. Inspecting it closely, he moved the precious cartouche carefully in his hands. Good, that works well. I'm really pleased with that. Suddenly, it made a beeping sound, and behind him, an enormous pyramid began to rise. Now, what I haven't included here is actually the archaeologist's reaction. So I need to sort of try and capture that awe and wonder that he has on his face, because I haven't described his response to the events that have happened so far, the rather strange events of finding this unusual item and then this great big pyramid raising up out of the ground all by itself. So I'm going to add a little sentence in on the end. I'm hoping that you can see it if I move my board back just slightly. There Okay. So I'm going to try and capture that emotion. I'm going to say he gasped, because that might give the sounds of him. So he gasped in, and I might say in wonder and maybe horror as well. So he gasped in a mixture of wonder and horror. Brilliant. I've thought it, I've said it, now I'm going to write it and add it in. So here we go, capital H to start my sentence. He gasped in a mixture of wonder and horror or terror. Oh, it's a one to think about, isn't it? In wonder, mixture of wonder and I think terror. I think terror fits a bit better. Okay, so just to me it sounds better. In wonder and terror, finish with a full stop. Okay, great. So what you're going to do now is you're going to pause the video. Okay, you can go back to the previous slide where we had all those questions for ideas of what extra details you can add in for your descriptions, and then go back to your editing process one final time and think about anything extra that you can add in, remembering to use a little triangle symbol and then writing above or below the extra details that you want to add in. Okay, brilliant. Last one, keep going, keep being ambitious, keep aiming high, keep listening to your work, read it out, reread it, talk through your ideas, and really give this your best effort, because it will totally be worth it and it will really make your writing sound so much better. Okay, let's go back to the slide and then we can pause. There we go. Right, pause now, last big push and improve that writing. Off we go. Right then, whew, very well done. Okay, well done, particularly if you have followed this film step by step. Okay, and you have improved each of those 3 elements of your writing. I hope you are really proud of your efforts, and I'm sure for everybody that's done this that actually your writing is better now than it was yesterday. All right, so really well done for that. I'm just going to give you a few ideas of how you can publish your writing now, okay, and show you a couple of really high quality examples for you to aspire to. Okay, here we go. Underneath this video, I'm going to put a picture and a link to this writing frame. So if you have access to a printer at home, then you can print this off, and it's already got the lines on there for you, and you can write up your short story as neatly as you can, bit of handwriting practice there for you, as neatly as you can, ready to share in our Zoom tomorrow. Okay, so I'd really love for us to be able to publish this, not just on paper, but also to publish it out loud in our Zoom session so we can read some of our writing. Okay, it's a lovely design around the outside. If you don't have a printer, no problem at all. There's no reason why you can't write your work out as neatly as you can first, and then draw a border around it, or illustrate it, or decorate it in some other way that would make it look really attractive. We can see here these 2 examples. Now, these are examples from year 6, so we're really aiming high here. Well, you've got sort of 2 ideas where you might like to make sure you have a nice, big, clear title. Okay, so you can come up with your own title here. Something like The Discovery, or The Unusual Discovery, or not Carnage in the Desert, or Mystery in the Desert, or something like that. You can kind of come up with your own idea, have a nice clear title, and then we can see here that we've got writing that is written incredibly neatly, but also we've got paragraphs spaced out. So yesterday when we did our 3 sections, you've sort of got 3 paragraphs to your story, haven't you? The beginning, the middle, and the end. So we can certainly do the same as well. I like how here we've got an illustration and the writing has been written around it. That looks really effective, as does this little detail over here and underneath. So there's no reason why you couldn't have some pyramids drawn on your page. There's no reason why you couldn't have a go at drawing the camel, or even having a go like the cartoon, so drawing some hieroglyphics around the outside. Like here, we've got some hieroglyphics. These are hieroglyphics here. So you can get really creative and enjoy illustrating your work once it's written up. Or you might like to take a slightly different approach here. This person has chosen to with their title, and they've written out really neatly here again with their paragraphs. But they've then almost come up with a storyboard telling the story. So you might like to have a go at illustrating certain key moments in the story. And when you publish it, you can always publish it like the written story and then the picture storyboard of it as well. I'll leave that there for you. Now is your time now to pause and to publish your writing, to take real pride in it. Okay, if you want to add colour, you can. If you want to use some of your other materials, art materials you have at home, please do. But what I would say for everybody is this word here, pride. Take pride, make this writing the best you can, okay, and be proud of your efforts, okay. Brilliant, really well done. I'll let you pause here and then set about publishing. And don't forget to take photographs of your work and send them in to Mr. McCandless and me at our email addresses that you know already, and also be ready to share in tomorrow's Zoom. Fabulous. Okay, right then, finally then, well done if you've made it to the very end of the video. Just a bit of a reflection. How did you get on today? How did you improve your writing today? Take a moment just to think back and say, well done, I did change that spelling, or I was missing a few capital letters and full stops. I've added those in. I'm really pleased with that. Or maybe, I really used an ambitious word today that I've never used before. That's something to be really proud of. And is there anything that you're finding challenging? And if there is, when we share our work tomorrow, why not share your reflection of how you found it, so that I've got a really good idea of what you might find challenging and I can help you the next time we come to our writing process. Okay, so have a little think, big pat on the back, really well done. Okay, and I look forward to hearing your stories improved and read out loud. Well done.